Welcome to Ladies Talking Leafs. I'm Chris.
And I'm Sil.
So we're now just over a week away from the Leafs home opener, or actually the opener on October the 9th. The NHL opens the night before on the 8th. And before we get there, though, the Leafs have some decisions to make, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to get into that. First, though, we want to tell you that BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games.
Think you know your stuff? Get in on the $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, though, you can head on over to the online casino and get in on the game on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slots games. Head to the website today, betonline.ag, to get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here. Please gamble responsibly, though. If you or someone you know needs help or support, you can reach out to Connex Ontario or an organization near you. Place your limits and stay within it.
So with the new season coming up, we just want to give a quick update on some of the rule changes coming to the NHL for this year. Some interesting ones, actually. First one is coach's challenge to the delay a game penalty, the famous puck over glass. A coach can now challenge a delay a game penalty that the puck either deflected off a player, stick, the glass, or the boards. So that'll be interesting. And of course, if their challenge isn't true or doesn't come out positively, they will be given a bench minor for that, for, I guess, a double delay game.
Would that be like would they be getting an extra 2 minutes?
I think they get actually, I think that, yes, I think they do.
So it'd become a 4-minute. Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyways, we're lucky that the Leafs video, coaching staff, they're pretty good at, dialing down on this. And
yeah. The second rule change, is related to line change following a displaced net. So now when the goaltender displaces the net, the defensive team will not be allowed to make a line change. So that's going to impact, I think it was Matt Murray that, if we have Matt Murray in goal, he tended to push off, I guess, off the post, that sort of thing. He's not going to he shouldn't be pushing off too hard to take the net off the pegs there, because they're not going to be able to, make a change. The same guys will have to stay on the ice. So, and then following an icing, the offensive center will now be given a warning as well for a face-off violation. The center will not be removed the way normally they throw the center out and somebody else has to come in. But if there is a second violation, the team will get a bench minor. So that's kind of interesting.
I think that they mentioned that a little bit on the broadcast last night. We're recording on the Sunday, so after the Habs Leafs Saturday night. I think there was a situation where it was that came into play, but there was no penalty or anything ensuing. So a couple more rule changes to note, though. An unsportsmanlike conduct. So for players sitting on the boards with their skates exposed during the play will be given a warning. So this is like when people are getting ready for a line change. After one warning, the team will be given a bench minor for future violations. So I guess they're trying to make that, more fair. That should help with, some of those too many men calls as well, though, because, now people are going to have to take an extra second or two to get on the ice, for those changes. Anyway, a final rule change for this season is related to an injured goalie. When a goalkeeper is removed from the game, the replacement goalie is actually going to be given a brief warm-up period. So I like that. I mean, that's something like in baseball, for example, when a new pitcher comes in, they get a chance to warm up. They're not expected to come off the bench and just immediately start to perform. And especially for goalies, I mean, there's a lot of idle time, when the play's at the other end. So, I think that's great, actually.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good move. It's going to hopefully reduce injuries, let's say, of the second goalie coming in. You don't have to have, what is it? The, e-bug situation. As often. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we have included a link in our show notes with more details about these rule changes. And you can find our show notes in all of our episodes wherever you listen to our show. So now let's get into the show proper. And we're going to start with a preseason edition of the Ladies Talkin' Leafs highlight reel. And then for our third period segment, we welcome ESPN NHL reporter Kristen Shilton to the show. So without any further ado, let's talk Leafs.
All right, so the Leafs have now played 4 preseason games, which is a good sample size to roll the Ladies Talking Leafs highlight reel. So let's roll it.
All right, coming in at number 3, we have Coach Craig Berube. We are already starting to see the formation of a team identity under the new head coach, so team defense with an attention to detail. It has started to show in the past 3 games for sure, which all ended in a 2-1 score.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm liking, I don't know. Have you noticed behind the bench to him, like the expression between him and Mark Savard?
No, I know. They actually, it's always them talking.
Yes.
So,
yeah. And it's just because it's like they have this question in their face as to like whether it was a penalty or what the player was doing there in that situation. I kind of like that interaction, seeing that. And, but yeah, no, the physicality that the team is playing with. I mean, it's not just about the fighting. Obviously they had the fights versus the Habs on Saturday night, but you can see they're very being aggressive. Let's just say they're playing an aggressive style, which is definitely something that Coach Craig Berube is bringing to the team. And it's going to take some time still, but to get it done. But I think it's worthy of him being in number 3, already noticing that after 4 games.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right. So coming in at number 2 is the penalty kill. Yeah. Staying with team defense here. This is a good thing. You can't get better than a perfect 19-0 on the PK through first 4 games. I was like worried last night versus the Habs because it was awful. They got like 7 penalties, I guess, in that game. It was just like ridiculous. But assistant coach Lane Lambert is in charge of the PK this season, and there has been a variety of player combinations with which Craig Berube said actually is because they're trying to see how players react in situations and what they are thinking. So yeah, so I just think with the PK, I mean, they shouldn't be taking 7 penalties in a row. Hopefully that'll.
No, I know you want to practice it, but I mean, really, that's not the way to go.
Yeah. But one guy that's been noticeable actually is that he's on a PTO right now. Is that Steven Lawrence?
Yes, definitely. In the games that he's gotten in.
Yeah. And he's been on the PK.
That's going to be probably a good line too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's he's been on the PK, and like he's obviously got size. He's huge. It's 6'4", 216 pounds, and he's aggressive. He plays the way Craig Berube wants the team to play, basically, right? And so that's somebody I've noticed, and even Nick Robertson has been given the opportunity too on the PK. So,
well, I think actually that's smart, especially during preseason, because what better way to get him more indoctrinated into the defense than to, get him to do those like more one-on-one type battles. And you really have to be always thinking. I think definitely it's a slightly different mindset, but being on that where you're like so responsible will lend itself into his game proper, I guess is the plan with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So number 1 on our highlight reel, which is a tie between the goaltenders. Who knew we'd be going with goaltending right away? So that's obviously a good sign. So the tie is between Anthony Stolarz and Dennis Hildeby. Both have made some excellent saves in the games they have played. Both are big goalies. Stolarz 6'6", Hildeby is 6'7". It's expected that'll be Joseph Woll and Stolarz to start the season. And actually it's great. And Hildeby's even mentioned it that, having Stolarz there as a bigger guy, and, a mentor for him. I think he's taken it to heart that the advice, that Stolarz has already given him. And it's great for him coming from another bigger guy. So, I'm liking the team that we have there. Even with Matt Murray as, another potential option. I think we're looking a lot stronger back there in the back end.
Yeah. And I mean, there is risk involved, obviously, in way that like Stolarz.
All of them, yeah. Really.
But Stolarz, he's only played 74 games the last 3 seasons, right?
Yep.
But I think the way the NHL as a whole, too, it's been going as a tandem. So that's basically from what they've shown us, Anthony Stolarz in particular, because he is going to be the backup. I just think that he's shown himself well. I guess he played versus the Habs. He played the 2 full periods here at Scotiabank Arena. And he played really, really well in that game. He even played better in Ottawa versus the Sens. He had a .938 save percentage in that game versus Ottawa. And there he played half the game. So yeah, I don't know. I just think that I just think as a backup, like that's the plan. And hopefully the only thing that's worrying me right now is that Joseph Woll has only been in the 1 game, right? And we haven't seen him since that first game. But
Ruby said, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
He said, we're not to worry.
So we can't worry about it then.
Yes.
We won't mention that. But yeah. But yeah, so good on the goalies, giving them some goalie love.
We just need them to keep it up. And I like that they're kind of going more for the true tandem. And I think that's probably why Stolarz came here, because even as the backup, he is going to get more time in the net than he did in Florida. So it's a good step for him, even, this late in his career as it is, but, he's just going to get more playing time. And I think if they really approach it like a true, like they're like a team, I think that's going to be good. So far from what I've seen with their personalities, it seems like it could really work well that way.
Yeah. And Hildeby too is,
yes,
the future is bright.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. So we got a lot more Leafs preseason news to talk about. But a quick reminder that we will be adding our extra episode during the regular season called Leafs Quick Hits. So you'll find the new episode on the off week from our full length episodes. The easiest way to not miss any of our shows is to hit that follow button wherever you listen to your favorite episodes. Apple, Spotify, or if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button there. Now it's time for our third period segment, and we're excited to have ESPN NHL reporter Kristen Shilton on with us to talk Leafs.
Welcome, ESPN NHL reporter Kristen Shilton.
Many fans know Kristen from her time as Leafs beat reporter for TSN. Today, she covers the NHL throughout the season as a senior writer for ESPN. Welcome to the show, Kristen.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, great. Yeah. So we want to start with getting your thoughts on Nick Robertson. We know he's asked for a trade during the summer, and that obviously didn't happen. Do you think, there is an opportunity on the left side, and he's played well, and even getting time on the PK. But from what you've seen so far, do you think he'll be in the lineup opening night?
Well, especially after what we saw in that preseason game against Montreal, you can see how much he's pushing. And there's obviously talent there, there's skill, putting aside whatever issues he had with the club and with re-signing prior to making the decision to go ahead and take a new deal in Toronto. Obviously, he recognized that there is an opportunity. Like you say, there is, some room for a player to work their way into the left side of the lineup for the Leafs. And what I think about Robertson is that he is very competitive. His issue has been health in the past. It's, can he stay healthy? Can he be consistent? That's the other thing, is that, if you're going to be playing, especially in the top 6, even if you're playing on the third line, you've got to have, a consistent element to your game. And it's not just goal scoring. It's got to be the defensive side as well. And so, I think it's when you're in camp and you have these preseason opportunities, he might not be playing necessarily the same nights as, Matthews and Marner and those other guys. But when he is out there, he's very noticeable, and you can tell how invested he is in trying to crack this roster. And, I think he probably sees this season as an audition for himself as well. if, those trade requests that didn't materialize, perhaps if he doesn't see a long-term future in Toronto, if he's auditioning himself for other clubs potentially down the road too, this is a big, big chance for him to, be on potentially one of the largest stages in hockey, for other teams to see what he can do as well. So there's a lot riding on this for Robertson. I think that's where, why you're going to see him push as hard as he does. But these next couple preseason games, as we get to the end of the line here, that's really going to tell the tale of where does Berube slot him in now going forward? Does he give him more opportunity, with sort of that A group? And if so, is Robertson going to be able to take advantage? And if he can, I've liked Robertson's game before, but again, can he stay healthy and can he stay consistent?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, I guess he's been playing 16, 17 minutes a night too, right? So you don't know, if he's going to get that much ice time once the real team is formed. You think, I don't know. I just think getting a lower amount of ice time, but then last year he did well as well, right? In the being lower in the lineup and only getting 11, 12 minutes a night, he still was able to, I guess, contribute in that. So yeah, that's,
and that is a great point as well. I think sometimes we forget that players, there's certain guys that when they are elevated in the lineup, they end up actually playing better because they have more minutes. Whereas, some players in a fourth line role might not thrive there because they just don't get enough shifts. They don't get enough opportunity. When the bench gets short, they're not out there. And that's where frustration can set in, especially if you're a player like Robertson, right? Where, you see that he wants a bigger opportunity and that can weigh on a player mentally too. So you have to factor that into, what sort of role would he have on this team? And I'm sure that given whatever happened over the summer, he has communicated that to the organization of what it is that he's looking for and what he's striving towards here.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So you've covered this team for many years, obviously, and the changes that Brad Treliving has made over the summer. Do you think the Leafs will have enough now to go on a deeper playoff run? Sorry, we're putting you on the spot here.
We love to talk about playoffs in September. Because there's so much optimism. There's so much, there's so much hope. And I mean, I can be very optimistic and say, I think that Treliving addressed, the two biggest issues that Toronto has had, which is defense and goaltending. They really needed to shore up the depth there in both cases. And we saw how aggressively he went after Chris Tanev. You saw the way that they've really invested in Joe Wall, who, seems like he is ready to take over that position. But then it's also, you've got Anthony Stolarz and you've got Matt Murray there with him. So you have some insulation there, some protection, for Wall, who's had his own, his own health issues, but you like where the goaltending is at. You look defensively and it feels like this might be, the strongest D-core that the Leafs have had in a while, just in terms of a good mix of veterans, young talents, guys that, have winning pedigrees, that know what it takes to be successful in this league. And, just even watching some of these preseason games, you can see, just a little bit more edge to the Leafs. You can see a little bit more of maybe that grittiness is going to come out. It's not, they're never going to be, Broad Street bullies, but there's definitely, I think, they just needed a little bit more edge to their game. And I think that there's something there from what Treliving has done. It's a question of, their offensive depth. I think as we're talking about, the Nick Robertsons and, some of those bubble guys, it's just who is going to fill in the gaps here. Is the William Nylander experiment at center going to work, or should Treliving have gone out and found, another real third line center there, and allowed Nylander to stay on the wing? So there's definitely question marks, but I think the changes at the core that, the core changes that Treliving has made, addressing the defense and addressing the goaltending, that's where the biggest changes will come for Toronto, because those areas just have let them down. You think about Samsonov last year, just didn't work at the start of the season, and it was such a roller coaster. And if they can eliminate the drama in that respect, it's going to go a long way, and it's going to just allow their forwards to shine, because this is what the Leafs do best, is that they are a fast, high scoring team. And, they are going to be more than that under Berube. They're going to be obviously more north-south. That's what he's preached all along. But I like what Tree Living's done so far. It's really, to me, just what is going to happen kind of offensively once this team gets rolling, and who's going to fill in some of those gaps that maybe have still been left after the offseason.
Yeah, because goal scoring has been a problem, obviously, in the playoffs, right? The depth scoring in the bottom of the lineup. And and you mentioned about the physicality, I guess. I think last night's game versus the Montreal Canadiens, I think that's the first time I've seen three fights, I think, in one game, and God knows how long. So, But you also mentioned William Nylander in the center, I guess, position. And you and Ryan Clark recently wrote an article on ESPN.com, burning questions for 32 NHL teams this preseason. And for the Leafs, you had the question, will center depth be a problem? Do you think this experiment will work with William Nylander at center again? Will it stick the time, do you think?
My gut feeling with William Nylander is that he can play whatever role he needs to if he decides that's what he wants to do. And that's just kind of how Nylander's been throughout his whole career, is that you see the games where he is really invested and dialed in defensively, and his all-around game can be, as good as anyone on the team. And it's just when he gets away from it, when he starts to, just kind of focus on the goal scoring and focus on, making his plays and, just the offensive side of the puck, you see where the frustration can set in when you're trying to play him at center, and the defense has to be first. It just, not everyone is going to, be an Austin Matthews who can score 60 goals and play as well defensively as he does. But you're not looking for that from Nylander. You're looking for a reliable center who can, play both sides of the puck and who is going to, not be a liability in his own zone. And that's where in the past Nylander has gotten away from it at center, but he has all the talent and skill in the world to do it. And I think he can even continue to, score at a high rate as well and be a playmaker. And, he wants the puck. There's you hear him on the ice all the time. He's yelling for it. He wants to score. It's just that as a center, I do think that he can excel there. He just maybe has to resign himself to the fact that there won't be quite as much scoring opportunity all the time. But I do believe that, especially if Berube is putting him there, and now that he makes the amount of money that he does, you have to play the role that you're given, and I think that if he decides that he really wants to, dial in on that, he will.
For it to be a success, Kristen, how important is it then going to be to get the right people on his wings? So that he can basically, obviously not have to focus too much on defense, be able to make those plays, but also be able to score. Like, who are going to be the best fits potentially there for him?
Yeah. I mean, and that's so tough to say too, because that's really what, this whole training camp experience has been about, is that he's had, how many different wingers coming on. You look at, some of the combinations that Berube has gone with, and it really comes down to chemistry, but it's also about, he needs guys that know where they need to be on the ice, because he's used to playing with, the thing is, you're coming off the wing of an Austin Matthews or a John Tavares. Those are two centers that are always going to know exactly where, guys are going to be. They're going to get them in their right spots. They're going to, be able to set guys up well. And that's what Nylander, what he needs as well. And I think that when you have, some of these guys who are fighting for jobs and you don't really know yet exactly what it's going to look like. Pacioretty, we assume he's going to make the team. Max Domi, we assume. We don't assume. We know that he's going to be there as well. But he's played well with Matthews in the past too. What does are you really going to move? Those two. Are you going to take those two apart as well? So I think that there's something to be said for having younger wingers, even with Nylander, because they're hungry to score. They some of these guys, they're really talented. They're more raw, but they're talented. But then as well, I think a Pacioretty, with Nylander is going to give him, some nice veteran insulation there as well. which can be nice, especially when you maybe aren't used to that position, playing a position all the time, which Nylander obviously hasn't consistently over the years. So it is important to find the right mix. But I think for Nylander, what's most important is that if he focuses on his game and on excelling there in what he does best, then whoever he's playing with is going to benefit from Nylander as much as he'll benefit from them.
Mm-hmm. Actually, speaking of now that because we're almost halfway through, any idea, because you're the little bit of an insider here. So when more cut downs will be made, are we looking at, early next week, maybe even today?
I would think probably later in the week. I think, if the Leafs are, they've got a couple more games here, they, I think they have some team bonding activities planned and such. So I think they're probably going to move through that first. So I would think more towards the end of the week, closer to that game against Detroit in Detroit. Maybe not even until after that, maybe next Sunday, when the game, in Detroit is done. And I would think that's, if you don't have to make the changes, then why do it sooner than later? Especially the more crowded the waiver wire gets, the more likely that guys can sneak through as well, because there's just too many bodies and there's a lot to choose from. So that is taken into consideration as well. But it seems like right now they are happy kind of carrying the amount of players that they have. But I would think later in the week, mid to late this week would probably be the earliest I would expect cuts probably.
Okay, we will look for that. So we have one final question for you, Kristen. So obviously the Toronto beat, as we know, can be a very interesting beast. What is the thing that you miss most from covering the Leafs day in, day out?
Oh my goodness. I never thought I would miss it, but I actually miss the day to day sort of grind of it. There's nothing really like being on one team where everything, the ins and outs, you're there every single day. You know the absolute minutia of a team. And I think as a journalist, that was a really special experience for me, and one that I know that has made me into, sort of the writer and the reporter that I am now, because it's so unique. You get to know the players so well, and they get to know you, and you get to kind of experience the whole season, the highs and the lows and the frustrations, with them, almost in the sense of, you're sort of riding that wave of exhaustion, and oh my gosh, I can't believe it's 3 and 4 and you're on the road. And it's all those little things that you don't get covering the league at large, where, you're never going to know every single team as well as you do as when you're on the beat. And honestly, I miss the fan interactions too, to be honest with you. It's because the passion is just, it's unparalleled. People love the Leafs. And I think it's something that I miss a lot. I miss even the people who would just say horrible things. I'm they just love it so much that they can't help it. So I would say I miss the people. I miss my colleagues. But I'm so grateful for those years I spent on the Leafs beat. They were the absolute best.
Well, you can come on with us anytime if you want a little bit more of that fan interaction.
Amazing. Thank you.
Because we're definitely, we're a fan show. We're for the fan. We're fans ourselves.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
All right.
You guys are great.
Thank you so much, Kristen, once again for being a guest on our show. You can find a link to Kristen's ESPN articles in our show notes. And from time to time, you will hear Kristen on Toronto radio shows giving her opinion on the Leafs throughout the NHL season. You can also find Kristen on social media. You can follow her on X at Kristen_Shilton is her handle. Thanks again, Kristen. Thank you for making time with us today.
Oh, thank you guys so much. This was a blast.
Thanks.
All right.
So thanks again to Kristen for coming on the show. I thought it was interesting on the question to do with whether or not the Leafs are ready to go deep in the playoffs. She didn't 100% say for sure, yes, that they will.
She was optimistic.
But she seemed optimistic. The way, I guess, what I took from it was that by Treliving improving the back end and the goalie situation in some ways, being a tandem, let's just say that's going to allow the forwards to do their thing more. not to say that there's no responsibility, obviously, for the forwards. They still have to come back and help out the defense, obviously, but there's just going to be that more stabilizing presence in the back end, I think, with the improvements that Treliving did. And Nick Robertson, she made a lot of good points about him and how he's really, I guess, even though he asked for the trade, like he's proving that he can play in like the top 6 or the top 9 of this lineup. He's definitely showing the skills for that.
And like what she was saying is that we obviously all know that secondary scoring was a huge gap for us in all of our playoff runs for the last few seasons. And because, your top guys are always going to get more attention. So that is going to take away from their game somewhat, and that's expected, but we need other guys to step up, and he is a sniper. So, if he can continue and, really, put his full attention into this season. And, I kind of think, and I didn't mention this when we were talking to her, but I was wondering if that incident he had with Willie, that seemed to be kind of a transition point for him. I wonder if that kind of made him like really have to, just feel like, oh my God, I have to do something now because otherwise I'm screwed. So to me, I really feel like there is a Nick Robertson before that incident and a Nick Robertson post that incident. We'll see if he continues this way, but it might have been a moment where like he just was like, okay, that's enough. I just got to get out of my head and do my thing. And he's been great since that moment. So
most of from what I'm reading today on the Sunday that we're recording the podcast, like a lot of people have him making the team, like for sure. So so sometimes it takes like a situation, a moment like that to really make you just kind of clear your head and go, oh my God, I have to just. And I think that too with Craig Berube, like that's the coaching difference too, because I don't know that Sheldon Keefe was so high on giving Robertson that opportunity, and he's put him in all situations, and and he's so far he's done
example,
great.
We don't know, what traversed between them after that moment too. Like he could have just said, "What are you doing? Just calm down, forget about this stuff, and play your game." And maybe that's all he needed to just move on.
Right? Yeah.
Anyway, so the Leafs have a couple more preseason games versus the Red Wings this week at the end of the week. So my guess is that they're probably going to be doing some team building type stuff between now and then. Craig Berube, GM Brett Treliving, and assistant GM Brandon Pridham will then have a few decisions to make for cap compliancy before opening night on October 9th versus the Habs. So from Puckpedia.com, the Leafs are just over 1 million over the cap. So
yeah. So it's going to be something there has to be a move somewhere
for sure,
whether it's waivers or trade or there's been a lot of talk about Kelly Yarncroke, who hasn't seen the ice at all because of injury for this for this preseason.
Always get injury, like it's some sort of minor thing during preseason.
Yeah, that's why I don't know if he's going to be. Nobody's going to want an injured player, obviously, for a trade. Yeah. David Kampf is the other potential that I've heard about. Which it makes sense, but I don't know. 2.4 million, I believe, is his cap hit, and it makes sense for us to want to deal him because of that on the cap. That's quite a bit for the amount of minutes that he plays, but then he's a center too. So
and we are very, very light on center depth there.
So we'll leave that to Brandon Pridham and Brad Treliving to figure it out.
Yeah.
But don't forget, we are going weekly for the upcoming regular season. Hit that follow or subscribe button wherever you listen to our show. At the same time, please consider leaving us a rating or a review. It's easy on Apple and Spotify, and it's important for our show to get recognized as a source for Leafs content, and we thank you for taking the time.
Another way to help us out is by visiting our Ko-fi page at Ko-fi.com. You can follow us there, and if you choose to, you can support us by buying us a coffee. Any donation goes towards helping us produce the show and making it even better for you. So you can find the link to our Ko-fi page on our show notes or in any of our social media profile pages.
And it is National Coffee Day. So happy National Coffee
yes,
Day.
It is.
So thank you to our healthcare workers and first responders for everything that they do.
We thank you as always for listening and watching Ladies Talking Leafs presented by Bet Online. Till next time, go Leafs,
Leafs, go.
Do you believe?